The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Edgar Chagua Lungu, President of the Republic of Zambia. I request the protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Edgar Chagua Lungu, President of the Republic of Zambia, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Your Excellency, Professor Tijani Mohamed Bande, President of the 74th Session of the United Nations General Assembly, Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, distinguished heads of state and governments, honorable ministers, heads of intergovernmental and other organizations, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me join the previous speakers in congratulating Your Excellency, Mr. Tijani Mohamed Bande, on your assumption of the presidency of the 74th regular session of the United Nations General Assembly, and to assure you of our fullest cooperation in the discharge of your responsibilities. I am confident that your wealth of experience and wisdom will prove invaluable in guiding us successfully through the present session. I also wish to extend Zambia's sincere gratitude to Her Excellency Ms. Maria Fernanda Espinosa Garces for the exemplary work exhibited during the 73rd session. The theme for this session, Galvanizing Multilateral Efforts for Poverty Eradication, Quality Education, Climate Action and Inclusion, presents an opportunity to re-examine our priorities, redefine our mission, sharpen our vision as we approach the 75th anniversary of this organization. It is a call for us to harness the atmosphere in which the United Nations family can implement its priority programs, especially in key areas such as alleviating poverty in order to enhance the human condition throughout the world. The eradication of poverty is feasible. We have seen remarkable progress across every dimension of poverty. Malnutrition and youth illiteracy have both substantially decreased. This progress is gratifying, but it is still inadequate. 1 billion people continue to live in extreme poverty. If anything, the recent gains should spur us to do even more to finish the job and to ensure that no child goes to bed hungry anymore. We must ensure that nobody is forced to choose between sending her daughter to school and sending her to work. Everybody has the opportunity to fully participate in their country's economic and civic life. Mr. President, Zambia applauds the leadership that the United Nations provides in tackling climate change, as was illustrated only a few days ago by the hosting of the Climate Action Summit. Climate change is frustrating efforts to raise the standard of living for the world's poor. Scientists have spoken, and we have seen with our own eyes the devastating impact that climate change has had on our environment. Early this year, 3 of Zambia's neighboring countries, Malawi, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe, were affected by cyclones. Not far away, half of Zambia experienced a severe drought, which has since resulted in low crop productivity and low water levels for hydroelectricity generation. Thus, opposite climatic extremes are occurring within the same neighborhood. As a consequence, Zambia is now scaling up its efforts to diversify energy production. Other priorities include the increasing of the adaptive capacity to reduce vulnerability and building resilience against extreme weather events such as droughts and flooding. The impact of climate change requires global collaborative efforts and support for the mitigation and adaptation strategies. As a developing country, Zambia needs assistance to enhance her capacity in key areas such as scientific research, early warning, rapid response, and transfer of appropriate technologies to help cope with the negative impact of climate change. Mr. President, furthermore, scaling up global efforts in addressing climate change should invariably include the increased accessibility to financial support, particularly for countries with limited resources, to enable them make their fair contribution to this global effort, and also bear the general climatic change-induced cost burdens. The need to secure and promote the wildlife flora and fauna as an environmental good for ecological and socio-economic benefit cannot be overemphasized. In this regard, Zambia appreciates the hosting of the Elephant Summit initiative held in Kasane, Botswana in April this year, and the Africa Wildlife Economy Summit held the following month in Victoria Falls Town in Zimbabwe and was hosted in conjunction with the African Union and the United Nations Environmental Programme, UNEP. These summits, among other things, recognize the need for partnerships with communities and the private sector as key in securing wildlife and enhancing economic benefits from wildlife. Mr. President, in our continued effort to support this cause, Zambia is scheduled to hold a follow-on summit in May 2020 in the tourist capital of Livingstone. I call upon our international collaborators to work with the regional countries to achieve a successful outcome for our wildlife. Over the past years, Zambia has made important developmental efforts, and we are determined to foster an all-inclusive development paradigm based on the African Union Agenda 2063 and the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Barely a month ago, on the 7th of August 2019, Zambia had the honor to host a launching ceremony in Lusaka for the Sustainable Development Goals Sub-Regional Center for Southern Africa. The establishment of the center underscored our collective resolve as Southern African countries that we can win the war against poverty, hunger, disease, and illiteracy through the exchange of best practices and joint action. However, we must also keep in mind that most African countries could not attain the forerunner Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, mainly because of various challenges, including inadequate financial resources. In our pursuit to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, the MDG trend is unfortunately likely to continue unless Africa devises more innovative ways of addressing its development challenges. The center in Lusaka, therefore, will bring the initiative closer to home for our Southern African region, and it will be able to be a vehicle for facilitating engagement between governments and other stakeholders to accelerate the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals and for deepening regional integration. Mr. President, my government attaches great importance to the needs and welfare of all, with specific focus on women, children, and the youth. To this end, Zambia's 7th National Development Plan has targeted the most vulnerable members of society to enhance the capacity of their involvement in the country's economic and social life in an effort to raise their standards of living. In this regard, my government has taken steps to ensure that there is equitable access to quality education by all Zambians by providing universal basic education within the shortest realistic time frame. A comprehensive program of health reforms is also underway, and this should also result in the improvement of the well-being of our people. The measures and programs that the government has undertaken are, however, not enough to to fully attain the objectives of these programs of action, mainly due to limited financial resources. We can only call on all partners to join efforts, and together let us help to improve the lives of our people. The horrifying shadows of poverty are darkened even further for Africa's refugee children. Zambia is a plateau of peace and a home to many refugees. We therefore appeal to the United Nations and other humanitarian organizations of the world to help us share this burden. Together, we can restore dignity and help in looking after the refugees. Mr. President, Zambia continues to make tremendous strides in the campaign to end child marriage. In this regard, we have also continued to engage traditional leaders to reform traditions and customs which promote child marriage. Currently, we're in the process of harmonizing statutory and customary law on marriage to prohibit early marriages. We're also repealing several discriminatory and outdated statutes related to children in order to come up with a children's code to domesticate the provisions of the Convention on the Rights of the Child.